Hi, Dr. P here to talk about what really counts in wars. And I mean wars, not simply battles. So I like to get to the bottom of things, to recognize what's really important. And what I'm trying to do this time is recognize what is really important in warfare. Again, not in battles, but in entire wars. And these are the 5 I've come up with. The military, fairly obvious, economy, time, the will of the people and the government to keep fighting, and usually post-medieval technology. You can trade the first 3 for something else among those 3. Will can flag with time. Technology can even out over time, but sometimes it doesn't, for example, with nuclear weapons. So let's consider each of these in turn. The military. Well, it's obvious that having a strong military at the start of a war can let you win rather than lose. And that's especially win before any economic superiority of the enemy lets them catch up militarily. And of course, this depends partly on how long the war lasts. The longer the war, the more economy trumps military. So the Axis in World War II didn't have enough military, although maybe they would have if the Japanese had not surprise attacked the United States and if the Germans had managed to beat the Soviets. Then perhaps they could have evened out the economy. And a strong economy lets you build up your military, which is how World War II played out. The Axis had initial military superiority, Allied economic superiority won in the end. Video war games, quote unquote, are often about economy, but they become resource management games instead of war games, where the winner of the resource competition inevitably wins the military decision, and often they'll have better tech as well as more military strength. Time is a bit of a slippery one. Time can even things out, of course, and there's a well-known phrase, time is on our side. You can trade time for other advantages. Given enough time, the Allies developed the atomic bomb. The Soviets traded time by retreating for economic and ultimately military advantages. Time helped beat Napoleonic France. Among other things, the opponents sort of caught up with Napoleon in how he organized his forces. Time affects will and technology. Time enables economy to exert greater influence. Will to fight. Even if a government is able to continue the fight, the people must want to continue as well. The South hoped the Union would lose the will to fight in the American Civil War, and they nearly did. The Romans were famous for will to fight. When opponents thought it was reasonable to make peace, the Romans fought on and ultimately usually won the war. For example, in the First Punic War against Carthage, which lasted 23 years, the Romans and the Carthaginians were more or less prostrate at the end, but the Romans, by private subscription, built a new fleet, and that enabled them to win the war. Private subscription, in other words, individuals contributed money to build that new fleet. We can ask ourselves, if the Japanese had not launched a surprise attack, would American will to fight have been sufficient? As it was, the Japanese had no chance after they pissed off America. The American economy was so much stronger, it was going to overwhelm the Japanese, and that's what happened. Technology can also be a bit slippery. In modern warfare, when one side uses a new technology, the others soon develop it. So it gives a temporary advantage which may be sufficient for the current war or may not. Radar is an example. As war has become more complex, we can ask, is technology less likely to make a difference in the long run, but more likely in the short run? Of course, some technologies beyond one side, for example, atomic bombs, unmanned drone aircraft, modern high-tech electronics air forces. Only one side will have that in some cases, not both. There are many other examples. For example, Prussian superiority in artillery helped them win in 1866 against the Austrians and 1870 against the French. The needle gun, which was a rifle, helped them defeat the Austrian Empire in 1866. Railways in the 1860s and 70s could be a technological advantage. To go further back, we have English longbows. And we have the Mongols, who had a superior technology of horse archery. At least superior with respect to most civilized opponents. Now, the Byzantines had also relied on horse archers for centuries, but the Mongols didn't fight the Byzantines. Horse archery was not a technology that could be quickly adopted, just as English longbows were not. So, one side can be inferior in some of these five and superior in others. We have military, economy, time, will, and technology. Keep this in mind when you design a war game. These are the things that really count in a full war. In a battle, no, that's a different situation. Thanks for listening.